The storyteller welcomes you to another nightmare. Plug in your earphones, close your eyes, and let us begin.
When I started as the overnight clerk at St. Mary's Hospital, I thought it would be easy money. The graveyard shift meant no people, no drama, just paperwork and silence. I liked the quiet. I liked being invisible. But hospitals at night aren't really empty. They're just quieter, like the building is holding its breath. Sometimes you hear things, footsteps in empty corridors, doors creaking, the elevator running when no one called it. I told myself it was just my imagination. My job was to file away old patient charts. Most were routine broken bones, flu, the usual. But one night, I found a chart with a name that felt familiar, Eleanor Voss. I shrugged it off and kept working. But then I saw her name again. And again, different years, different wards, always the same outcome. Unexplained death. Sometimes the cause was respiratory failure. Sometimes unknown complications. But always, the handwriting on the death certificate looked the same, even though the file spanned decades. I started searching for her name on purpose. I found Eleanor Voss, 1972. Eleanor Voss, 1985. Eleanor Voss, 1991. Each time, a black fingerprint smudge in the corner of the page. My skin prickled. I felt like I was being watched. I tried to laugh it off. Hospitals are full of weird coincidences, right? But the more I dug, the more the air in the records room felt heavy, like the walls were pressing in. I started having nightmares cold, sterile rooms, whispers behind closed doors, the feeling of someone standing over me as I slept. One night, I found a file that made my blood run cold. It was dated April 26 TH, today's date. The patient was Eleanor Voss. The notes were frantic, the handwriting jagged. Patient found unresponsive, no pulse. Room temperature dropped suddenly. Black mark on left wrist. As I read, I felt a chill on my own wrist. I looked down. In the harsh fluorescent light, I could almost see a faint dark smudge on my skin. I rubbed at it, but it didn't come off. That's when I heard a soft shuffle, like someone dragging their feet outside the records room. I froze. The security cameras in the basement hadn't worked for years. If someone was down here, I was alone. I tried to focus on the files, but my hands were shaking. The shuffling grew louder. I glanced up and saw a shape, a tall, dark shadow move across the doorway, just at the edge of my vision. My heart hammered in my chest. I called out, "Who's there?" My voice sounded small, swallowed by the silence. No answer. I stood up, every instinct screaming at me to run. But something kept me rooted to the spot. I looked back at the file. Someone had written a note at the bottom, in handwriting I didn't recognize. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. The lights flickered. The air turned icy. I heard a whisper, so close it felt like it was inside my ear. "Leave?" I bolted from the room, slamming the door behind me. But as I ran up the stairs, I heard footsteps following, slow, deliberate, getting closer with every step. I tried to tell myself it was stress, lack of sleep, maybe a prank. But the next night, I found the records room door ajar. Though I'd locked it, the files I'd left on the desk were gone. In their place was a single chart, Eleanor Voss. No date, no details. Just her name and a black smudge in the corner. I started seeing things. Shadows that moved just out of sight. Reflections in the glass that didn't match my own. The other night staff avoided the basement. When I asked about Eleanor Voss, they went quiet or changed the subject. One old nurse finally whispered, "Some names you don't say out loud here." I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the records room, the shadow in the doorway, the black mark on my wrist growing darker. Tonight, I decided to end it. I went back to the basement, determined to find every file with her name and destroy them. I pulled open the drawers, but the files were gone. The only thing left was a mirror propped up against the wall. In the mirror, I saw myself, but behind me, a tall, dark figure, its face hidden in shadow. I spun around. The room was empty. I looked back at the mirror. The figure was closer now, its hand reaching for my shoulder. I felt icy fingers brush my skin. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The lights went out. The door slammed shut. I was trapped in darkness. The only sound my own ragged breathing and the soft, steady shuffle of footsteps moving closer. I don't know how long I was down there. When I woke up, the room was empty. The files were gone. My wrist was black with a mark I couldn't wash off. I quit that night. I never went back. But sometimes, late at night, I hear shuffling footsteps in my apartment. Sometimes, I see a shadow in the corner of my eye, tall and still, watching me. And every year, on April 26th, I find a single black fingerprint on my door. If you ever work a night shift in a hospital and you find a name that keeps coming back, don't look too closely. Some secrets want to stay hidden, and some shadows never leave. If you're still watching, maybe check your own wrists. And if you see a black smudge, don't turn around. Some things are better left in the dark. Before we move on to the next story, if you like true scary stories, please subscribe to Storyteller and click the bell icon for more creepy tales every week. Imagine this. You wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, drenched in cold sweat. You hear the waves crashing outside, but they don't sound comforting anymore. They sound like a warning. You're alone on a forgotten island, trapped in a lighthouse with something ancient, something that wants you to see it. And every wall around you is covered in symbols you never noticed before. This is my story, and it still haunts me. When I first took the job as a lighthouse keeper, I thought I was running away from my old life. The ad said solitude, good pay, spectacular views. I didn't care about the isolation. In fact, I craved it. The island was small, surrounded by jagged rocks and endless gray water. The lighthouse itself was old, tall, and made of rough stone that always seemed cold, even in the sun. My only company was the wind and the waves. At first, the quiet felt peaceful. I read books, cooked simple meals, watched the storms roll in. But the silence started to feel heavier every day, like the island was holding its breath, waiting for something. One morning, while cleaning the spiral staircase, I noticed a strange mark carved into the wall. It was a circle with jagged lines running through it. I ran my fingers over it, thinking it was just graffiti from a board keeper decades ago. But that night, I had a dream. I was standing at the top of the lighthouse, looking out at the sea. The water was black, and something was moving beneath the surface, circling the island. When I woke up, I could still hear the waves crashing, louder than ever. More symbols, more nightmares. Over the next week, I found more symbols. Some were small, hidden behind pipes or under peeling paint. Others were huge, carved deep into the stone. They all looked ancient. Nothing like the lighthouse's original construction. Every night, my dreams got worse. I saw the symbols glowing red in the darkness. I saw a figure standing in the corners of the lighthouse, their faces hidden, their bodies twisted. I woke up gasping for air, convinced someone was standing over me. I tried to tell myself it was just the isolation, just my mind playing tricks. But the feeling of being watched never left me. The waves around the island never stopped. At first, their rhythm was soothing, but now they sounded angry, almost desperate. Sometimes I thought I could hear voices in the roar, whispering words I couldn't understand. One night, during a storm, the waves slammed against the rocks so hard the whole lighthouse shook. I went to a window and saw something in the foamy shape, tall and thin, moving along the shore. I blinked and it was gone. That's when I realized the symbols on the walls weren't random. They formed a path, spiraling up the tower, leading to the lantern room at the top. I couldn't sleep. I grabbed a flashlight and started following the symbols, tracing them with my fingers as I climbed the stairs. The higher I went, the colder it got. My breath came out in white clouds, and the air smelled like salt and old stone. At the top, I found a door I'd never noticed before. It was covered in symbols, all of them glowing faintly in the beam of my flashlight. My hand shook as I reached for the handle. Inside, the room was empty except for a single ancient mirror. The frame was covered in the same symbols, and the glass was so dirty I could barely see my own reflection. But as I stared, the symbols began to move, twisting and writhing like living things. Behind me, I heard footsteps, soft, slow, getting closer. I spun around, but the room was empty. My heart hammered in my chest. I looked back at the mirror and saw a figure standing behind me. Tall, thin, its face hidden in shadow. It raised a hand and pointed at the wall. The symbols there glowed brighter, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I felt a pressure in my head, like something was trying to force its way into my thoughts. I heard a voice, low and cold. "You shouldn't have come here." The mirror cracked. The symbols on the wall started to bleed, red lines running down the stone. The air filled with the sound of waves crashing, louder and louder, until I thought my ears would burst. I tried to run, but the door slammed shut. The room spun. The last thing I saw before I blacked out was a figure reaching for me, its fingers long and sharp, its eyes burning like coals. I woke up on the floor, covered in sweat. The room was empty, the mirror gone. The symbols on the walls were faded, almost invisible in the daylight. But I knew what I'd seen. I knew what I'd felt. I left the island that day. I never went back. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I see the symbols carved into the darkness behind my eyelids. I hear the waves, not as comfort, but as a warning. Some secrets are meant to stay hidden. Some places remember. And sometimes, late at night, I wake up to the sound of footsteps in my hallway. I look at the walls, and for a split second, I see the symbols glowing faintly, waiting for me to notice them again. If you ever find yourself alone, somewhere old, somewhere forgotten, and you see strange marks on the walls, don't look too closely. Don't try to understand. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're watching this at night, maybe leave a light on. And if you hear the waves crashing outside your window, remember, not every warning comes with words. Some are carved in stone, waiting for someone to listen.